G'day guys, how are we doing? I'm currently sitting here at LAX airport and got a little bit of time to kill. It is about 6:30 I think in the evening here on Sunday, July the 20th. And I think my plane leaves at about 10:55, so I've got a bit of a wait, so I thought I'd just find a little corner here at LAX and a little bit of a review of what happened yesterday, and not just yesterday, probably the whole trip, I suppose. I've just had a little bit more time to, I suppose, take it all in. See a lot of comments online, a lot of stories online, just a lot of feedback in general. There's a lot of people out there that apparently know a lot about what it's like to be in a world title fight in front of 15,000 people and fighting in front of millions around the world and having a world-class fighter throwing bombs at you. But anyway, everyone's entitled to their opinion, aren't they? But look, first of all, the trip itself. Look, it's obviously been fantastic. I mean, I feel very privileged that I'm able to do this. Starting in New York, it was fantastic to go to the all-female card. Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. The fight itself was pretty ordinary, I thought, but just the whole event itself. I must admit, I'm not one that watches a lot of female boxing, but the fact that they had, 15 or 16,000 people, there might even be more, I'm not sure. Apparently 6 million people watching around the world. Look, a couple of the fights on the card were a hard watch, but probably no different to any other sort of male-dominated card. But the whole event itself, and I know I've sort of gone over a lot of this in the videos that I've done so far, but just the whole night, but put all the fights themselves in isolation to the side, just the excitement that was in the venue that night. I mean, the place was absolutely pumping. It really was, and the lights and the production was just amazing. And I've said it before, but full credit to Jake Paul. You know, he put on a great show and really has taken women's boxing and run with it and is doing great things with it, and really got it in the mainstream, hasn't he? So, and paying the girls accordingly. I think they got $13.5 million each, didn't they? So very well done to all concerned. And the next night was it was a fantastic night as well. Again, the atmosphere was brilliant, and Edgar Berlanga getting flattened by Hamza Shiraz was a little bit of the cherry on top, I thought. But anyway, we've been over all that. But felt for Iman Kataev. I thought he did enough to beat Morel, but it's just one of those things. He was the B-side when he came over here, so you got to expect that if it's close, it's going to go the other way. But where they actually had the fights too, Flushing Meadows was fantastic. Really good venue in there, really good sort of acoustics in there. You're sort of nice and tight in there, and not a bad seat in the house. It was really good, actually, so quite enjoyed that. And the main event, it was fantastic as far as Shiraz goes. Put on a clinic. I've got to say too, I loved the in-between as well, from going from New York to Vegas, going to Tombstone. I mean, look, I understand Tombstone and Albuquerque, where I did the Breaking Bad tour. I understand not everyone's going to be interested in that, but I sort of was up in the air about whether I would actually do the videos based on that, but I got a lot of good feedback from that. And if you've seen the movies and the TV show Breaking Bad, I hope you'll appreciate it and can take a little bit out of what I showed you anyway, and a little bit of the history of especially Tombstone. It was great. Really, two bucket list things, especially Tombstone. You know, big fan of the movies, especially Tombstone itself. There's Wide Open. There's a lot of other black and white movies and westerns from back in the day, but really enjoyed getting down there and seeing just all the, those historical places. And of course to Vegas. Look, I've been here a few times, let's just say, and I always love getting to Vegas. I must admit, I don't go there as often. Well, when I go there, I don't stay for as many days as I used to. I used to get there a week or a week and a half or something beforehand and see all the sites, but I've sort of done it a few times now. So I only like to get there maybe 2 or 3 days beforehand now. You can only sort of see the strip so many times, especially when you're by yourself. And it's by choice, of course, but when you're by yourself, it's not like you can go out sort of clubbing, and not that I go out clubbing anyway, but, it's hard to go out to flush restaurants and all that sort of stuff. I just sort of keep to myself a little bit and strictly a food court eater, and I just up and down the strip and go to different haunts. I just really like just doing my own thing and just sort of weaving my way through the crowd and sort of going to the beat of my own drum. And it's it's good. A lot of people say, why do you go by yourself? Well, it's just because I can do everything to my own schedule and don't have to be anywhere. I don't have to sort of wait for anybody. I just, I go when I want to go, and I get home when I want to get home. Like the other day, I didn't leave the hotel till 2:30 in the afternoon, the hotel room. And then the next morning I was up and about and gone by 9 o'clock. So I just like to do my own thing. But it's all for one thing. And this is why I don't get too stressed about what Vegas has to offer, because I'm there for the fights, for the boxing. And if you come with me to the States or to Vegas, you'll get an understanding of that straight away. I'm not there to go to bars and the restaurants and all the other stuff, the tourist stuff. I'm there for the boxing. So that's it's all I'm sort of focused on. I've done all the touristy stuff early, in my life, 20, 30 years ago when I first went there. So it's all just business for me now. But the fights themselves, last night I think we could all agree that it was a tough watch for everyone concerned. And again, at the fights itself, it was hard to sort of take in. You would have seen in my video yesterday, straight after the show. I hadn't seen any highlights. I hadn't sort of read anything into it. So it was straight after, and it was just sort of my raw sort of feelings of the event. And I sort of stand by a lot of it, having watched it today. The one thing that was probably disturbing, I suppose, is just, how quick a lot of people have turned on Tim. And look, I don't understand that's just life, Australian life by the sounds. I know it happens all over the place, but in Australia it just seems to be more than ever. And I'm just sort of reading a lot of comments on social media, on my own YouTube page, and some people out there. My own, and what I'm referring to, by the way, is the fact that he quit on his stool. I probably prefer to say retired on his stool, not quit on his stool, because the comments coming from everyone that you're a quitter and just like your dad, like father, like son, and if someone called him a coward and all this sort of stuff. These are comments from people that have obviously never been in the ring, obviously. And look, a lot of them I might have put a sort of a basic response to some of them, but some of them I felt like saying, hey, mate, you are a peanut, fair dinkum. Having just been at the amateur level that I'd been in, but countless, obviously thousands of spars in the gym, and just being involved in the sport, it was very obvious that these guys have never ever set foot in the ring, or probably been in any, and I'm not even saying elite sport in general, I'm just saying never been in a position where you've got to dig deep, and when you dig as deep as you can, there's nothing there to grab. That's probably what I refer to as. Now, I've never ran a marathon, but I'm sort of liking it to that sort of thing where you're just depleted of everything you have to give, and you've got no choice in the end but to retire. And we've seen it lots. They do the best and they battle through it, and the body just won't take anymore. And I just sort of looked at Tim yesterday and that. Now, maybe he could have gone another round or two, but he was copping a lot of punishment. Now, I would say to those people out there, especially the ones that are really laying the boots into Tim and all this other shit they're going on with at the moment, is that just, if you've ever done even just a boxercise class, try to, if you don't have a round at boxercise, imagine doing that times 10, then having a world-class athlete in the other corner laying hands on you constantly, and you're being cut and hurt and knocked down, trying to fight your way through exhaustion, and just try and put yourself through that. And if you've ever done even just boxing training in a gym, I'm sure you'll understand a serious boxing training I'm talking about. None of this pity-pat sort of stuff that you see. I'm talking about serious boxing training, and even in spars. And this is not, when you've got to dig deep. And this is not like a team sport where you get to go and have a rest on the bench, when you're spent. It's not like you pull the old proverbial hamstring and you go and sit on the bench and let your team do that, and then when you're ready to go back on, you can go on. It's not like other sports we can call timeouts. It's not others where you might not get a spell at all. But in this instance here, timeouts times that by about 10 anyway, but have that at the same time where you're literally being punched in the face and being hurt and being bloodied, being rattled. It's very hard to explain to people that have never been in the situation that Tim was yesterday of what it's like. And now I know it's probably easy to say, oh, you quit. Because I suppose if you look at it for what it is, he did quit on the stool, or as I said, retired. But look at the circumstances, guys. That's all I'll say. And again, I'll say it as well, that if you're one of the people out there saying he's a quitter, he's a coward, and he just quit on his stool, you've never obviously been in that position yourself. And I'd like for you to maybe do something where you have been pushed to those limits and under the physical abuse that he was under and the pressure, and then tell me the same thing after going through it yourself. And I'm not saying going down and doing 10 rounds on a punching bag at the gym. I'm talking about getting in there, and even if it's a sparring, and spar 10 hard rounds with someone that can throw hands here, and then we'll see how you go. Now, look, end of the day, it's people's opinion. I'm not going to get too involved, and I'm just giving you my opinion. And my opinion is that if you're one of those people out there, you have no idea what you're talking about because you've never been in that position. And one sort of golden rule I always go by is I don't comment on stuff that I don't know anything about. You know, and it might be political stuff, it might be stuff happening overseas and all these wars over there. I don't comment because guess what? I'm not in their position. I don't know what the hell they're going through. So I'm not going to pretend to know what's happening when I'm not part of it. And I think this is the same instance here. Unless you've actually been in that position yourself, please don't comment. You have no idea what it's like to be in front of that many people under that pressure and have nothing left to give. That's all I'm going to say. And it doesn't really matter what you sort of come back at me with, because you're not going to get me to agree to any theories that Tim quit on his stool. And I even saw one this morning where a guy, he had a YouTube video of, like father like son, going back to when Costa retired on his stool against Ricky Hatton, which I thought was a really low blow. Yes, it's coincidence. Well, is it coincidence that it actually happened? They both retired on the stools. But geez, that fight with Ricky Hatton, you're talking about, was he 35, 36 years of age, whatever he was, and being absolutely roughhoused and battered and, from pillar to post for 11 rounds and to hang in there for so long, where I remember thinking, how is this guy, when I was watching the fight, how is this guy hanging in there? And he lasted till 11 rounds, and his trainer, Johnny Lewis, was the one that said, Costa, you've had enough, I'm going to stop the fight. Obviously cared so much for Costa that he stopped the fight. It's very hard to explain to people that have never been in that situation and just say, geez, wow, he's a quitter. I actually applauded Johnny Lewis then, and look, I don't know the full story about what happened in the corner, whether it was Tim himself said, I've had enough, I want out, or the corner pulled him out. And look, probably to some extent they were under a fair bit of pressure as well with the corner because of what happened last time, or twice. They didn't stop the fight against Fundora, which cost Tim his titles. It would have been a no contest and we would have reset and gone again. And then they got criticised as well for not stopping the Bakram Mirzalia fight early as well. So they were probably under the pump as well. But look, I've got a feeling what was happening in between, when he was in the ring fighting, is that after probably the 6th round, there's probably a conversation in the corner saying, hey, and they would have obviously seen him in the corner and seen what state he was in, that they would have said, look, we'll give him another round, but he's got to show something, or we've got to stop the fight. He's really feeling the pace here. And so it wasn't just a matter of him being tired or whatever it might have been. I mean, as I said, he fought his absolute heart out for 7 rounds. Now, it wasn't good enough. Okay, we live with it. He'll have to live with it. Australian boxing fans will have to live with it. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. He fought his heart out for 7 rounds, and as I said, it wasn't good enough, but whatever. And it's, as I said, it's not like you can take a time out or take a 5-minute spell on interchange. You've got to go out there and start throwing hands again. And if he just can't do it, he just can't do it. So anyway, look, I'm sure everyone will have their own points of view about the whole thing and everything else, but that's mine. And I will not be convinced by anyone that Tim quit or is a quitter. I will not have it. I just won't wear it. And I saw that Turki Al-Sheikh with his tweet that was later deleted, really low when he said that told you that's why Tim's not on Riyadh season cards, and he might make a good sparring partner. This is another reason why I'm more and more thinking that Turki Al-Sheikh's a piece of shit. I really am. Yes, he's got all the money thrown around and he's doing this and doing that. But I don't think he's a nice person. I really don't. And it's tweets like that or comments like that that really highlight that. And yeah, you might be a fan of what he's doing for boxing, and that's great. Doesn't change the fact that I don't think he's a very nice person. Anyway, and this is before this comment. It just sort of probably solidified it to me that he's not a nice person. What else? And look, the one thing I must admit, I knew was coming, and I was holding my breath about it. But when it did come, I couldn't help but put my head in my hands and just think of the cringe involved. All the Australian boxing media at home, all like, why? How did this possibly happen? This is the third time in a year we've spoken about this. By the way, I watched the after fight comments with the main event team and Sean Porter. It was Jonathan Brown, Peter Bedell, and I can't remember the lady's name that hosts it, who does a really good job, by the way. I think the only one on there that really... Well, actually, Peter Bedell was pretty good, I thought, but the only one that really spoke, I think, with a bit of clarity and could probably tell us the real story was someone like a Sean Porter. I think he spoke really well, and I think he actually pulled up short a little bit of basically coming out and saying, guys, he's not good enough, okay, we can analyse it till the cows come home. We can all beat our heads against the brick wall and scream to the heavens, why, and how has this possibly happened to our superstar? Sean Porter put it the best. He just said pretty much shit happens. And he was asked whether he was finished. And look, he did say, no, I don't think he's finished, but I don't think he had a lot of conviction in his voice. I think he knows from experience that this could be it for Tim. Not as far as actually fighting anymore, but just at that level. And look, and regardless of everything that I've said, I will be the first to say that, in my opinion, Tim is not at world level. The elite world level is probably what I'm saying. When I say elite world level, I'm probably thinking the top 6 or 7 guys in the division. That's the elite level. He might get to 10, 12, 13, whatever it might be, but there's a massive jump from that into the top 4, 5, 6 fighters in the division, in the world, which we've seen with Tim. But I think the way Sean Porter was speaking, I think he was trying to be polite and break it nicely to all us Aussie fans, or to the Aussie fans watching on TV, that in his opinion that maybe he's not. He was sort of saying he's not there and he could come back. I think just by what he was saying, I think to me anyway, it looked like he was saying, hey, he's just nowhere near it now, and I'm not sure whether he can get back. That's the impression I got from what Sean Porter was saying. It was interesting though. I think Peter Bedell, as I said, spoke okay. I think he made some good points. In his opinion, he said, look, this will be 2 years. He did say 2 years after he lost to Moedas Zaliev, and he got the shot within, 8 months or 10 months or 9 months, whatever it was, since he got another shot. And Stephen Pios as well. I saw him interviewed by Jay McAllister. No, he's the announcer, but he knows his boxing, and I think what he said was good as well. I just think, look, in the media today, all the newspapers and the social media sites and everything else, all I saw was just these headlines. What next for Tim Tszyu? What do you mean, what next for Tim Tszyu? I don't get it. Well, he's lost that one, but that just must be an anomaly, and this couldn't possibly be it. And now he's got to do something. Everyone's just trying to roll out all these things about what's next for Tim. How about just let the guy come home and just really reflect on where he's at as a fighter, as a person, husband, brother, mother, son. Sorry, not a mother, sorry. Brother, son, whatever it might be. And just let him come back and see what he wants to do. Now, I know it must be a very, very bitter pill to swallow for Tim, the fact that he's not at that level. And it's very hard for anyone to get their head around that when they think they are and they're not. So he's going to have to take some time. And this whole thing, as I said yesterday, the Michael Zarafa bullshit started again. And Michael actually wished him luck and commented on the fight yesterday, which I thought showed a lot of class from Michael. But now coming out saying now's the time for the fight, it's not the time for the fight. And especially, what did he say, Michael? Well, now I'm the A side. Mate, Michael, I hate to break it to you. I know you've commented to me before about some of my comments, but one thing I will say, and I don't care what comment I get back, is that, mate, you will never, ever be the A side. You're just not. The only reason you're relevant in Australian boxing is because of Tszyu, and make of that what you will. And I think whether you want to see that fight or not, I think you would agree that even after what happened yesterday, Tszyu is still the A side, the A side, B side, C side. And unfortunately, without Tszyu, Michael Zarafa doesn't even get a mention by anybody. So, and that's not saying I don't wish Michael all the best with what he's doing, but let's just call it for what it is. Without Tszyu, Michael Zarafa would not get mentioned in Australian boxing. It's as simple as that. Again, like it or not, that's the truth. So I don't want to hear any of this talk about Tszyu versus Michael Zarafa. Forget it. Park it. Forget about it. I don't want to hear it. And I know, look, I totally get, by the way, that why Michael would say it, because it keeps his name in the news, and that's great. He's got to do that to keep himself relevant and in the frame for some possible big fights down the track. So I've got no dramas with that. But let's not talk about this Tszyu situation at the moment. Fight Nikita, that's all good. But just with Tszyu, I think the whole of Australia, as far as boxing fans go, in my opinion, we just have to forget about Tszyu for 6 months. Just let it go. You know, plenty of other good Aussie fighters to focus on at the moment. Just let him come back and just really reflect on where he's at. And if he wants to come back, I've got no doubt he'll come back. I really do. 30 years of age is probably, in his mind, he's got a lot to offer. But has he? This is the thing they're going to have to grapple with. Okay, he's 30 years old. We know he's at a level, but is he at the level, the elite, the absolute best of the best? And I think it's pretty obvious at this stage that he's not. And at 30 years of age, can he come back? I'll be honest, I don't think so. And that's with all due respect to Tim and Glenn, who have been so good to me when I've been away. I'm just calling it the way I see it. I don't think so. I hope I'm wrong. But from what I saw yesterday, I don't think there's been any improvements made at all since he lost to Fundora the first time, and then more so the Bahrain Murtazalia fight. I think the Joey Spencer fight really papered over a lot of cracks and made him look good. I mean, Spencer was a very, very inferior opponent to Tim. Not that I've got a problem with that, by the way, because after that, coming off that fight with Bahrain Murtazalia, that's exactly the fight he needed. I suppose the catch-22 thing is that he needed probably another 2 of those fights after that, and he was offered the Fundora rematch. I don't blame him for taking it, but from what I saw yesterday, he wasn't ready for it. He wasn't ready for it. Right from the word go, right in the first round, he seemed tentative. He seemed... what's the right word for it? I'm just trying to think. I'm not going to say timid. He just looked rattled right from the word go. This is before he got dropped. And I'm sure when he went down, the Murtazalia thing would have been going around his mind at 100 miles an hour. And I really felt for him. That's the first thing that went to my head, is that Murtazalia. So what ghosts, were coming back to haunt him in, when he's sitting there on the canvas. And I thought in the second round he was done. Yeah, I thought when he got caught on the ropes and really caught a barrage from Sebastian Fundora, I thought that was it right there and then. That the referee was probably going to stop it, or he was going to get caught and it was going to go down. But again, as I said yesterday, I thought round sort of 4, 5, 6, I thought he actually, and especially 7, I thought he actually showed a bit. The problem was, though, is that I think I said yesterday, the problem was there was no method to it. There was no sort of time his shots. I know he's 6'6", and the punches are coming at you from angles and lengths or distances that you're not sort of used to, and I get that. But they were just sort of head down, swing for the fences, and just hoping that one would land. And there was no trying to slip or weave, whatever. The biggest problem, or not biggest problem, the biggest thing I saw from Tim, and I was sort of looking, and everyone's got their own theories about everything. Well, I suppose I'll give my theory, is that watching his technique, it all comes down to his technique. This is why I say he hasn't improved a lot, because his team obviously haven't seen this. From what I gather from Tim, watching him fight Fundora, and I was probably trying to picture, what I might do in a similar situation. Not that I'm at that level, of course, but the biggest thing I took from it is that he when he's under attack, he goes backwards in a straight line. Okay, so normally you would think, in my opinion, it would be to actually go forward and slip outside. That's what I would look to do, or I would be instructing if I was in Tim's corner, is when you're under attack, the worst thing to do is to go back. You're even further away, especially if you go in a straight line when you've got Fundora's long arms coming at you. I would have been training him to go outside and come forward, so that when Fundora's coming in, he ends up close to him. So at least inside, he can do some work inside. He has no hope, or not just Tim, but anybody has no hope. If you're under attack from with a guy that's got, what was his, was it 70 or 80 inches or something, his reach or something, I don't know, something, he had 10 inches on Tim. But how the hell are you supposed to counter and get in a position to fight back when you go straight back in a line and take yourself back another 6 or 7 inches? It doesn't make sense, especially in a straight line. How are you supposed to counter a guy like that when you're even further away, 6 or 7 inches, than when you started? So again, I would have said go out, when you're under attack, go outside. It doesn't really matter what way, right or left, but make sure you go outside his shoulders and move forward, so that when Fundora is finished, at least Tim ends up inside and close to him. Sorry to spit there. That's the biggest thing I took from yesterday. Straight back in a straight line, and he had no hope to counter. I was really disappointed in the defensive manoeuvres or procedures, or whatever you might want to call them, the defensive moves he had when under attack. He had no defence whatsoever. The arms or the hands were sort of all over the place. There was no real, okay, under attack, I'm going to hands up, I'm going to get nice and tight. You look at the really good fighter, like a Canelo or someone, when they're under fire, cool, calm, composed, they don't panic, they just do the normal thing, hands up, they'll turn the head, turn the shoulders, where Tim was just like arms and legs, or not legs, but arms sort of everywhere, and just under attack, just had no idea sort of what to do. I know that's sort of hard to teach sometimes, because you can't teach it unless you're actually in the moment. But just for me, I just think there's still a lot of flaws in Tim. And as I said, like the defence, pulling straight back, just the composure. Like there's no clinching, there's no holding. Have you noticed that? He doesn't clinch or hold. Now that might be the warrior's code, but it's not very smart. Under attack, the first thing you're looking to do is get close to your opponent so you can hold or whatever. But Tim ends up like he doesn't close the distance. And obviously yesterday, of his course, with Fundora being so big, he was hard to get inside. But if he had gone outside those shoulders and got close, he might have been able to hold, turn, twist, whatever it might have been. But he couldn't do anything because he was still at Fundora's length, not his own. So he couldn't even throw, or he was throwing punches, but he couldn't land most of the time because he was just too far away in Fundora's range. So look, I don't know, maybe, I hope I'm sort of making sense here. I'm just trying to just put it through my own eyes, which what I would have been instructing him to do. And I just can't believe after the first fight, because I watched the first fight the day before, and he did exactly the same yesterday as what he did in the first fight. So there was no improvements made whatsoever. The reason he got beaten last time by Fundora is doing exactly the same thing he did yesterday. The only difference was yesterday is that Fundora actually got on the front foot and went after Tim. He didn't really do that in the first fight. He was happy just to pick and probe and punch from a distance last time and just rack up the points. Yesterday or last night, he really went after Tim and put it on him. So it was just magnified times 10 basically. And whereas in the first fight, as I said, Fundora was just quite content just to pity pat and pick up the points. When he got Tim on the ropes yesterday and really unloaded on Tim, he just had nothing to give back. And that's why I was saying that there's been no improvements made in that area whatsoever, nothing. And that was disappointing. They've had was it over a year, haven't they, to get it right? Even though, the rematch has only been scheduled for a few months, but they had plenty of time to plan for this. And just the same mistakes just keep popping up. And there's been a lot of calls online about, the team starting afresh. Well, maybe it is the time. I don't know. Look, one thing I will say though is that No Limit have copped a fair bit. Look, they can only get their fighters opportunities. It's up to, I suppose, Glenn Jennings, Tim's manager, and Tim himself, and the rest of his team to make their minds up on the decision to actually take those opportunities. I don't think No Limit have really done anything wrong. Actually, the one thing they have done sort of wrong, in my opinion, for Australian boxing is they put all their eggs in the Tszyu basket. Now that they'd be scrambling today, thinking, "What do we do now?" Maybe we should have invested a bit more in some of the other fighters coming up. Maybe we should have went out of our way to sign, sign some of those other really good, world-class Aussies that are currently in the mix out there at the moment. And now, you've got Liam Wilson, or Liam Parra is obviously still amongst it. He'll get another crack at a world title. Liam Wilson maybe, but not really much sort of coming on at the moment. So they haven't, and in my opinion, they haven't done a lot to really build. Sam Goodman's another one, by the way. They haven't used those fight nights on Fox, whatever they call them, to really build a feeder program to the pay-per-views. And I think it's going to come back to bite them now because they really just haven't got anything now. Tim looks like he's going to be out for a while. I know Nikita, maybe Michael Zarafa, but Michael Zarafa's only going to be a pay-per-view attraction if he fights one of the Tszyus, not by himself. So they've got some work to do to No Limit. But I don't blame him in this instance. I think after last year's fight, they would have backed themselves to beat Fundora this time. And obviously they didn't count on a bigger, more aggressive and improved Sebastian Fundora that come at him last night. So, yeah, but yeah, maybe as far as a team, I definitely think as far as and I don't like to say it, but his Uncle Igor, maybe it's time to maybe move on from him. If he's got any chance whatsoever at all of getting back to some sort of level that he might be in a position to challenge again down the track, it's just my personal opinion. I think he needs a world-class trainer. We've all seen that Tim's got great natural ability, but that's taken him as far as he possibly can at the moment. He needs someone that's going to be able to compete with the big boys in the corner, not just in the middle of the ring. And I just think, especially yesterday too, I think he was out coached as well. I think Fundora's game plan was there. They'd made adjustments. I don't think, as I said, Tim had made any, and it showed. So who does he train with? I've got no idea. But I just know there's a hell of a lot of good world-class trainers out there. It's just up to him to do his homework if that's what he wants. Loyalty will get you a certain way. But it was blatantly obvious last night that the team around him, as far as in the corner, not the management and promotional side of things, the guys in the corner, they're doing the training on a day-to-day basis, just, in my opinion, aren't at that level either. So I think he needs to make some really hard calls if he decides to go on. Now he might say, well, I've had enough, or he might say, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to stick with the team, the current team, and that's great. But I think we're back here in another 12 to 18 months if he doesn't do that. And I don't like to say it because I've met the team. They're all great guys and they've done a great job so far. So there's nothing personal. I'm just looking at it from a distance. And I'll say it again, I was so disappointed yesterday that there was no improvement in Tim whatsoever. No tweaks to the game plan against Fundora. So surely, I watched the fight a couple of days ago with Fundora. I remember looking at it going, well, geez, I'd do this and I'd do that. If I'm thinking of what, these guys are world-class trainers, and there wasn't one adjustment made, not one that I could see anyway. And if they did try one, it didn't work because it was a blowout. The first fight was a split decision. Last night's fight was a blowout, pure and simple. So that's just the way I saw it anyway. So anyway, look, we can sort of talk all day about it. I know we've all got our different opinions about it, but he's going to have to make some hard calls, some really hard calls. I think they've done a great job, all concerned with Tim, but that's great to a certain extent. Is the window closed now as far as everything goes? My personal opinion, again, I'll say yes. I think it's closed. Does he go up to middleweight? That's another maybe scenario for him. The competition's not as good up there, but geez, I'll tell you what, Janabek and Erizandi Lara, Carlos Adames, I don't think it gets any easier for him at middleweight. And in my opinion, again, if he can't beat the likes of Murtazaliyov and Fundora at 154, he's got zero chance. In my opinion, again, this is all just my opinion, by the way. In my opinion, he's got basically zero chance against the likes of Lara and Janabek and Adames. So again, that's something they'll have to think about. So anyway, I'm sure everyone again will have their say on this. Some will agree, some will say I'm full of shit. That's great. I'm not asking for anyone to support or debate. I don't care. This is just my opinion about things, because I looked at the comments today, and I just had to beat myself in the head a few times. Fair dinkum. The ignorance of some people out there with what they're saying, and I'll say it again. Something I never do is comment on stuff I don't know anything about. And these people commenting have never been in the situation. How are you supposed to comment about what was going through his mind and what physical state he was in if you've never been there yourself? If you've never had to dig deep ever in life. It doesn't have to be boxing, it could be anything. Never had to dig deep when you've got nothing else to give and you've got to dig deep and there's nothing there. What do you do? And it's quite easy to say, I would have done this and I would have done that. No, you wouldn't have. You wouldn't have. So anyway, I'll say it again. Really proud of Tim's effort yesterday. Yes, I was disappointed with the loss. Yes, I was disappointed that he retired on the stool. But I'm still proud that he's an Aussie and did a fantastic job flying the flag. And what happens now? Well, one thing I'm not going to do, by the way, for the next probably 2 weeks is read the Australian boxing media shit they keep going on with about what's next. It's the first thing they were saying again after the fight. What's next for Tim? What's next for Tim? Thurman. Why are we discussing Thurman? You know, well, maybe he could fight someone else No, he doesn't need to fight anybody. He needs to go home and rest and reassess where he's at in his career and his life. That's what he needs to do. So anyway, give me your best. Again, I'm sure I'll have it from all angles, whether you're in support or not. Again, I don't care, but feel free to put it in the comments below. I'm sure we can talk more about it when I get home on Talking Boxing, but for now, that will do. I'm going to go chill for another couple of hours and get on this plane and get home and get back on with things. So again, thanks to everyone that tuned in on all episodes while I was away. Can't wait to do it again on the next trip, and great to have you along. See you next time.